Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Everybody's doing well. Today we're going to Raid of Japan. Raid of Japan. A little breakdown on the soft plastics because they're absolutely lights out. Cash and checks on the Tidal Potomac and the James River. These are some baits probably that you're probably not familiar with. Because a lot of people aren't spilling that juice. But they are phenomenal. Now, if you're familiar with Raid, you're probably more familiar with the Level Minnow, the Level Vibe, the new Muscle Wire for the A-Rig anglers going on in the fall and all that. Probably hearing more about that. And then, of course, the Fish Roller. Fish Roller kind of piggybacked on the depth Sakamata shad. A lot of people got on that Fish Roller when the Sakamata shads were kind of really hard to get, especially the 4 and the 5 inch. So a lot of people got a lot of familiarity with the Fish Roller. They can be utilized in the same way for strolling, hover strolling and all that the Sakamata shad kind of blew everybody away with, forward-facing sonar and all that stuff. But don't sleep on the deeper product line of Raid Japan, especially if you don't have forward-facing sonar. Especially if you're fishing in the grass, you're fishing in the flats, greenway flats. You know, a lot of people are going to be throwing chatterbaits. They always have. It's probably the #1 bait on the Tidal Potomac. It's probably the most overused bait. And the bass fundamentally are getting conditioned to it. You can look at the catch rates for a lot of tournaments in terms of deeper beyond like the first 3 or 4 places. When you run down all the way down, the weights have come down substantially. And it is, in my opinion, a product of primarily people are fishing the same baits over 4 or 5 days, and bass are just fundamentally being conditioned. It's science. They are being conditioned to the sounds. So you want to throw change-ups and in that regard. And so that's what you're finding is a lot of guys are going out and hitting 13, 14, 15-pound bags locally using some of these other baits. Like, they're in the fisheries a lot more. They can spend a lot more time in the fisheries than the tournament guys who come in once or twice a year and spend 5 or 7 days and they're off to the next event. So the local guys are really beginning to expand and key on because they're on the front line. They're seeing these bites. Doesn't mean that the jackhammer is not still catching fish in the flats, in the grass, in the upper Potomac, or up in the bay, but the weight's just not there. The catch rates are declining. And I think that's a product of the fish being conditioned to that and far too many people just utilizing and burning a jackhammer or a chatterbait all day long in literally dozens of events throughout the summertime especially. And so you got to throw like a change-up. Especially if you don't have forward-facing sonar, and you're not into the hover strolling, you're not into all that stuff in a lot of events, no matter where you are in the country. But Raid, just the designers and the people behind Raid just get it. I don't know any other way to explain it. Every single one of their baits in the specific niche category that they focus on is absolutely a fish catcher. And I just think that they spend so much time in R&D on Japanese bass, some of the most highly pressured bass in the world, okay? I mean, think Lake Gunnersville times 10, okay, in Japan, all right? And so they have to, really spend a lot in that R&D, okay? And so a couple of the ones I'm going to talk about today, some of these are available. Some of them are really hard to get. Most of mine come direct, okay? Because Raid is harder to find at your local tackle shop, especially your independent tackle shop, because the distro just really isn't as penetrating in the States as some of the other JDM brands like Megabass, Jackal, and to a lesser extent Depths, okay? But your JDM tackle warehouses, your JDM tackle stores online that are primarily JDM, they usually get a pretty good supply, but they sell out very fast. You guys figured that out in 2025 with the fish rollers, okay? Fortunately, Raid was ahead of that, and they came out with their super fish roller, and there's some new designs, kind of like but they were larger. They were like 6, 7, 8 inch. that kind of filled that gap when the Sakamatas were so hard to get. You certainly can still get those socks. You gotta just, if you're interested in getting the Depths Sakamata shads, just email me. I'll put my email in the description. You can get them. You can still get them direct from Japan. I've never had a problem getting them direct from the shops in Japan. And so, you know, I could steer you in that direction, because most of the time they've been sold out in shops in the States. Especially, like I said, the 4 or 5. Sometimes you can pick up the 6s, but the 4 and 5s are still available over in Japan. And so you just kind of have to know and navigate that, and I can help you navigate that. Just send me an email. So let's talk about some of the ones you probably aren't familiar with, especially if you guys are finesse fishing, you're backsliding, tubes, for example, which I love to do on the Tidal Potomac. And also incorporate some of the other, like, the trendy baits, from Hide Up, that have been kind of trendy, the Koiki and all that kind of stuff that's been kind of trendy. Well, Raid's got a few of those too, and man, they absolutely freaking catch largemouth on the Tidal Potomac. But let's start with a very simple one, which is your buggy crawl, okay? Your buggy crawl, which is really a cross between what I consider to be a tube style, okay, and a crawl bait, because it has that front, and it's, if you've noticed, a lot more baits from Japan are getting thicker, right? They're capitalizing on that weight, and they're just thicker, okay? There's more volume of the plastic in a lot of the baits now, which does a lot with the fall and the free fall and different things that you can do, so you don't have to overweight these, because these are already significantly heavier than most crawl baits, okay, and crawl style baits and tubes that you're going to get in America, okay? I love the action on this, especially because of all of the way they have the appendages. So the way this one works, really, it's almost got the same feel that you would do, and this is really awesome with this, is you can roll this one on the bottom just like you would, say, someone fishing with like a Hellgrammite, okay? In the same way. And you wouldn't traditionally think that way about fishing a tube like that, right? But because it's not a tube, okay? So you can let this thing fall on the bottom and then drag it on the bottom. And a lot of times that weight is forward centered. So it does this action, okay? And it attracts those bites right up off the bottom. This one's also a really, really great. It's typically probably bigger, for me, than I tend to would like to throw it. But I have caught smallmouth bass on this buggy crawl. This buggy crawl is the pile shrimp. It's also like a smoked shrimp. The shrimp colors work best, okay, in the inland fisheries as well for smallmouth. It's a little bigger profile than I typically would like to throw for my smallmouth in the upper Potomac and even in the Susquehanna River. But it still catches smallmouth. When you get them and they're feeding, you can go up a little bigger. Like, right now heading into winter, we've had some low levels. So we've all been downsizing the baits a little bit, making them smaller to entice those strikes. But when they start to, again, push back up in those creeks, what happens in Virginia and Maryland is the smallmouth will push a lot of the river chub and creek chub and all that this time of year up in the creeks, up in the back towards the aqueducts. And that's when you can roll this out a little bit thicker because they're feeding up. So it's just a great, great bait. But on the Tidal Potomac, awesome in the grass, backsliding it from the grass, throwing it into that vegetation, and kind of backsliding it out. It's a really, really effective bait in that regard. Try and locate. They're very, very hard if you're a Tidal Potomac fishery angler. I love these natural colors because I tend to target smallmouth more, to be honest, throughout the year. But the cinnamon blue flake, if you get black and blue, anything like that, you guys know black and blue is a standard on the Tidal Potomac, and to some extent the James River as well. So if you can locate the blue versions, the black and blue, cinnamon blue flake, those kind of in the buggy crawl, you're going to increase your catch rates substantially. So give that a shot. Now, one of the other newer ones that a lot of people, quite a few people cast some checks with, but very few people are talking about, okay, from Raid. Everybody's talking about fish roller, so I'm not going to cover fish roller in this, okay? I'll cover that in the hover strolling options, and we'll get a bunch of them together, and we can talk about the different ones. Is the cut swing right here, okay? So this is the Scuppernong cut swing, okay, from Raid. Okay, again, see how thick that is? This one happens to be ribbed, so you're going to get a little bit different water displacement a little bit when you're moving it around. Okay, again, and this action on this is freaking absolutely incredible. It kind of is a cross. If you notice, a lot of the Japanese baits the last 2 years, they've gone to like this cover scat, you know, like things like that are like short and, you know, thick, just pieces of plastic, right? Look like little turds, right? Okay, that's kind of like still the traditional kind of thing that's going on. This one just is a little bit different. It puts all that same kind of weight, same amount, same weight as those. It's got the slit in there, okay? You obviously can backslide this as well. And so it's just another variation. The fall is a little bit different than than obviously the crawl. This one is lighter. This one is definitely heavier, okay? You're still going to get that action, okay, out of this piece, these pieces in the back. See, that's a split. It's a split tail in the back, okay. Cut swing. I like the Scuppernong. It's kind of like the last couple years for the inland fisheries, but obviously the black and blue, cinnamon blue flake, any of those blue tones, purple is obviously the colors that you want to go with. And then I got the. This is how it's packaged, by the way. It's packaged just like this. All right, 5 to a pack. Retail probably $12 to $14.99. So just be aware of that unless you're buying it direct. Here's a smoked shrimp. Smoked shrimp. I love this color. A lot of the natural colors I love. It's not. It looks more like you would traditionally think of like laminate baits, like with a two-tone, like I love the one that had like a different colored belly. Okay. This is definitely really good for smallmouth, this one right here. And you can cut these down. I've cut some of mine down about an inch, so where it's there instead of that. And I just cut right here. And so basically it's like a chunk, and then I've got that action, and I can rig that with like decoy, Ryugi, decoy. Even sometimes I'll put these on the Gamakatsu Horizon head, okay? Because you can cut it down and you can fit it in the larger Horizon head. So that is the cut swing, okay? So this is the smoked shrimp and Scuppernong, okay, in the cut swing. You also can check out a lot of these videos. Raid's got a YouTube channel. Also go to raidjapan.com. You can kind of see a lot of the pro staffs. Obviously, they're going to be in Japanese, a lot of their videos. But you can kind of get the point of how they're rigging them and how they're presenting them, which are really crazy. Very innovative. There's multiple different ways you can rig these baits. And like I said before, so one of the others, like the whole like tentacle spider kind of like thing craze that happened, the cube craze that happened, you know, all of these things that have happened over the last year or so. And you got your big, this is the big version. And so in the Tidal Potomac, this is an outstanding change up, let me just tell you. Okay, I know people that have caught the 4 to 4.5 pounders in the Tidal Potomac this year with this one. So I'm going to share the juice with you. There is a smaller version that I throw in the inland fisheries, like the Shenandoah, the Tidal Potomac, the New River, Susquehanna River. It is called the Big Two-Way. Okay, Big Two-Way. It is absolutely a change-up. Most guys are not. You're not going to see most guys throwing this bait probably in your Tidal Potomac. But they should, especially on low tide, okay? And here's how that bait looks. This is the big version, okay? Which is perfect for moving in, especially as that tide is hitting those walls, right? When you're fishing those walls, bluff walls, whatever you want to call them, on the Virginia side of the Tidal Potomac, and that water's pushing up against those walls that run by the power plant, or the docks. Okay, and it's pushing and coming out. It's pushing and coming out. Okay, the action on the big in the everything's got to be bigger, okay, in my opinion, in the Tidal. All right, so you can get away with bigger baits in the Tidal. They're used to seeing bigger size bait fish, bigger size shad, hickory shad, American shad, crawl. They're used to seeing things be bigger, like in their ecosystem, than say in an inland river system like the Shenandoah River in Virginia, okay, or even the New River, where bait fish tend to be smaller, right? So you can go bigger. You can go with the big two-way, okay? This is the Amiso number 84, 084 from Raid. Harder to find, okay? But if you're interested in looking for this, I could just hit me up. I'll locate and source some and get them in and then get them to you, okay? Because I got a really good source in Japan, shop there that's carries everything Raid. I mean, everything. The level vibes, the level minnows, all the crankbaits, the muscle wire stuff that's obviously very, very popular because it's very, very unique. And I'm hopefully looking forward to throwing the muscle wire coming up. Just remember, guys, if you're going to utilize the muscle wire or any umbrella rig or any Alabama rig, make sure you check your state regs, okay? Each state is different on the number of hooks that you are allowed legally to have on one of those baits. So big two-way, Omiso, look at that, black and blue. This is a phenomenal, guys, give this a go, okay? In the springtime, or even if you're going out late fall and you're going to do some winter, but definitely in the springtime, give this a go. Look at all that action. You could just see that. Even on low tide, this is going to attract a lot of attention. Love that bait. Okay, let's talk about the crawls, okay? Obviously, if you live in the DMV, you are familiar with all the different kinds of crayfish that exist in our inland river system, but also our crawl and crabs, blue crab, for example, that are in our Chesapeake Bay watershed, right? All of these things fundamentally are a forage resource for all of our bass. Smallmouth, up towards in the upper Potomac, obviously, with the Allegheny crawl and all the crawls that are up that way. And then, obviously, the crabs and some of the crawls that you'll find towards the Tidal Potomac. And so a couple of the ones, Raid's got quite a few crawl baits, okay? One of the ones I don't have, because I think I have it, okay, I don't have it with me right now, but you want to check out, if you can find it, is the Bata crawl, okay? It's a 3-inch or a 3.5-inch. Perfect. That crawl is absolutely killer in the number of ways that you can rig that crawl. Crawl bait, crawl profile. So Bata crawl, okay? The ones I'm going to talk about really quick are going to be our, it's 3 different baits, 2 baits, 2 different sizes, 1 bait, 2 different sizes, sorry, is the Bukami Crawl Daddy. That's the big boy. Okay, big size. And then the regular Bukami Crawl, okay? It's the regular size. So this is the regular size. So let's take this out of the pack. And one of the really cool things about Raid, in a lot of their baits, they package them individually. So you could just take this, throw this in your box, take it out. You don't have to take the whole bag out on your trip with you, okay? You could take 1 or 2, take some different coloration patterns with you, and you can keep them pretty stored in these individual like clamshells, and you're good to go. Okay, folds open like this, perfect. Fish with it, and you can put it right back in. But this is your size. Look at that, is absolutely. I love that this is so much thicker, okay, than any other bait that you're gonna find in that crayfish, crawl, crab type niche, okay, for your salt plastics. And it makes a big difference that profile, the appendages are bigger, and then how that is on the back, okay, and movement in there. It just creates far more water displacement, okay, than a lot of the other baits on the market that you would utilize in the same way, that you want to utilize in the same way. Again, thick, Again, love the creamy color bottom, two-tone. That's what I like. That's my poison. Okay? Love that action. And this is the smaller one. All right? So keep that size in mind. And let's open up the daddy. So the guys that I know in the Tidal Potomac that are throwing these are catching great numbers. Okay? And they're using the daddy. Okay? So they're using this one right here. Okay? So look at the size difference between the two. All right? Doesn't look, this is definitely thicker, okay? For casting purposes, definitely cast further away from your boat or even your kayak if you're out there and you want to get it away from you. You certainly can do the same techniques I was talking about with the buggy crawl, okay? Of backsliding these, okay? From the grass or getting them along the grass line edge or just bouncing them around. Phenomenal bait, okay? And the last one is more of like your traditional crawl, okay? Traditional crab crawl bait, okay? You want to get this in the blue, black and blue, all that stuff, especially for the Tidal Potomac, okay? And I call it the Zards, okay? These are 3-packs, okay? Not cheap. $15 now for 3, okay? These things are pretty big. This is the 83 Smoke Shrimp is the one I pulled up. I think I have three coloration patterns myself of this one. So more of a traditional type bait, okay? But big, thick, and heavy on the front, okay? So what happens is that thing goes to the bottom, okay? It's more like down, like the crawfish, are feeding off the bottom. Still has the thicker appendages like the bukami, okay? At least a little thicker, about half as thick. But you can just kind of see how that would be in the water, okay? Watch, dropping as it's falling, okay? A lot more movement, and that water's being moved away and peeling back over it as it works its way down. Okay, it's got that hole, it's got that slit in the bottom. All right. Phenomenal bait. Bigger profile, obviously, okay? This is why I tend to only really consider this one for the Tidal Potomac because the stuff in there is big. I have thrown these down at the New River and have caught smallmouth because the crawfish down on the New River can tend to be 3 inches and 4 inches, okay, at different times of the year. So that's about this size, especially this time of year, okay? To a lesser extent in the spring when the new crawl are smaller, okay? That would be more when I'm going to go with the buggy crawl or I'm going to go with the smaller, not the daddy, but the smaller, okay, bukami, all right? But this obviously comes in about 6 colors. I think you could pretty much get about 6 different colors in the States. There's probably another 6 available in Japan. But you could just see that is one of the most lifelike and natural looking baits for this profile that you can find, okay? And every bit of this bait is providing some kind of action, okay, in the size, even from the back, okay? Even if this was lying on the bottom as it stirs. This thing, okay, not as much of a big deal for you guys on the Tidal Potomac, but if you're fishing the Upper Potomac or the Shenandoah or the Susquehanna, you want that in that river, that substrate, rocky bottom, and sandy meets gravel and pea gravel and rock. You want this because it's going to move, and as it moves, it creates that dust, it creates that cloud, right? Okay, and that attracts. That's an attracting thing. Like smallmouth are going to recognize that there's something on the floor, okay, on the river bottom moving around. Because basically it's just like little like puffs of like, disturbance down there. And the heavier this is in the belly, the more it's going to do that. And so definite killer presentation for you to utilize, okay? So these are just some of the ones. Raid's got an entire lineup, guys. They are not just the fish roller and the muscle wire like a lot of people on YouTube would have you believe. They've got a ton of a lineup. The level minnows are every bit the smaller, the 80s, and they're every bit as productive as some of the other jerk baits, whether they be OSP or they be Megabass. Every bit as productive, especially if you're going out chasing smallmouth and that smaller profile. But they also have the bigger profile baits. Obviously, Level Vibe absolutely is one of the best lipless style in the spring. When we see that crawl burst and a lot of the crayfish start popping out, the ecosystem comes to life in the spring. All the grass, everything. Level Vibe. It's like, Level Vibe, Blade. Blade. All that. It's just like, lipless crankbait niche, blade bait niche. Although, I'll be throwing more of that blade style in the winter, than necessarily they're heavier, and things like that. But Raid of Japan's got a massive lineup. Not all of it is in the States, so you gotta do some research on it and take a look at what's available in Japan. Again, I'll put the email in this video. If you are interested in any of these, if you're interested in that depth sock, if you're interested in those things and you can't seem to find them anywhere, or they're sold out, just hit me up, because I usually got a good 95% hit rate on getting them. From the guys in Japan, not only the retailers over there, but some of the guys I know that are over there in the military, who can hit the shops up. A lot of those shops in Japan, I've said in previous videos, have a lot of used baits, a lot of used swim baits, a lot of used Gancraft, a lot of used DRT, a lot of used stuff that you don't really see here in America in terms of tackle shops, with swim baits and having like a big used section. And you can get incredible deals in Japan on used swim baits especially, but also crankbaits, and things like that. So hit me up. You got any questions? Again, Raid of Japan cut swing. You can check that out. Okay. The big way. It's also a 2-way, which is smaller. Okay, for finesse guys. Okay. The Bakami Crawl Daddy. The regular Bakami Crawl in the regular size. The Buggy Crawl, one of my favorites. Absolute fish catcher. And then obviously the Zarks. Okay. Bigger size profile for all you guys. Definitely hitting that up on the Tidal Potomac. All right, guys, hit me up. If there's any other bait brands that you want me to do, I've got a whole bunch coming in from Japan now. They've kind of changed the whole duty and tariff thing to where now it's being picked up and covered by some of the people that I'm getting my baits from. So they're actually covering the duty now, because they've seen people stop purchasing because of the customs and the duty and the tariff and all that stuff. So I kind of got an in that regard where they actually cover it. So I've got about 4 or 5 more packages coming in. Megabass, OSP. Jackal's really hard to get right now in the States. I think I have some Jackal coming in. Just the production has been very, very limited. So you're probably going to see a lot of SKUs selling out of a lot of the Jackal soft plastics, especially the finesse. I got some Hide Up coming. Obviously Megabass. Did I say Megabass? Obviously Megabass. Okay, constantly always getting Megabass in. So if there's something you're really looking for, hit me up. I'll locate it. I'll source it. And we can talk back and forth. All right, guys.